Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Demystifying Personalization, converting e commerce window shoppers into paying customers. Today, we have with us Jonathan Flender. Jonathan Flender is a passionate digital marketing professional and currently heads e commerce function at the Futtaim Group. He has over 15 years of experience with previous stints in the UAE with Axiom Telecom, Bayut, and Mums World. Thank you for joining us today, Jonathan.
Thank you very much.
Jonathan, I want to begin this interview, by talking to you about the change in consumer behavior and the overnight shifts nobody predicted due to the pandemic. Since consumer behavior is now settling into the new normal, and people everywhere are learning to live with COVID-19, what are some trends you have seen, in this changing consumer behavior in the e-commerce sector?
Well, I think obviously it changed a lot over the last 6 months, right? We went from, in our cases, right, we operate retail and e-commerce businesses in the region, right? So we went from consumers that were shopping in retail and in e-commerce to shoppers consuming only in e-com during the lockdown, and back to another type of customers, which is retail, e-com, retail, right? Or e-com, retail, and e-com again, right? So it's not only one channel now. It's really multi-channel, not necessarily omni-channel, but multi-channel. People are way more savvy than they were before. Obviously, a lot of people who were not shopping before the pandemic started to shop. The people who were already shopping became more savvy, and we obviously get more competition. Customers are more demanding because of the competition on the quality of the products, the pricing, the quality of the services, not only on product availability, but also on the time of delivery, the easiness to return or getting refunded. It evolved a lot over the last 6 months and probably more than the last 3 years.
Right. Actually, when you talk about emerging trends in e-commerce, you hear a lot of emphasis given to personalization. It is fast becoming a big deal for marketers, and for good reason. So, what does personalization mean to an e-commerce organization? What are its direct impact on sales?
Well, for me, the first thing about the meaning of personalization to me is adding value for the customer, not adding value to a financial report, not adding value to an e-commerce report, but just adding value to the customer. So for me, that's the starting point. And obviously, we live now in a hyper targeting world, right, where we aggregate a lot of data and try to deliver the right message at the right time to the right audience. So personalization means to me a deep understanding of the customer expectation, and that starts probably with the customers and understanding who we are as e-commerce, companies or retailers, and understanding the why of our company, right? It's why we do what we do, and that's very important because we can't get to know each other if the customers don't really know who we are and why we are doing what we do.
Right. And where do you think marketers are going wrong with personalization?
I think the first thing would be that they don't personalize at all. So that would be the first mistake, right? And I think the main issue with companies who are not offering personalization is how to get started, right? Because personalization starts with segmentation. And obviously, marketeers are usually very scared of reducing their segments, reducing the number of messages, email, SMSs, push notifications that they send because they're scared they're not going to get the same results, right? And I would say that short term is probably true, but it's a winning strategy on the longer term. So that would be the first thing, right? Then the second thing is not doing data sanity check, right? So a lot of people jumping into personalization, they are using data that they have, but they actually have no idea if their data is actually accurate. Quite often, we're merging data between one system and another. We have either deduplication or have wrong information getting stuck together, and we end up delivering the wrong message. And I think once you start all of this, so start personalizing, doing your data sanity check, well, maybe the third main issue is trusting the system too much, or the algorithm or the AI or the machine learning system too much, because most of the personalization tools are based on user patterns, user behavior, right? Which is for sure a good approach, right? But it's
Yeah.
also has its own limits, right? It's the effect of, you know, basically following the trend of many people. Everybody is different, and hence you have also some risk of doing targeting or doing personalization based on data, but actually your customer is not one of the pack, right? And then he's different and he will not be reacting positively to what you're sending.
Right, right. And when we talk about personalizations, another thing that comes to mind is, product recommendations. And as a consumer myself, I often see this, very poorly executed. What are some tips on how marketers can improve on one-to-one product recommendations, and how is recommendation playing an important role in increasing purchases?
Well, I believe that, one-to-one, product recommendation or really excellent product recommendation is the pinnacle of personalization, right? It's basically the equivalent of a modern personal shopper. So everyone wants hyper personalization, exclusive recommendation, and so on. But the key is obviously to make it right. So for companies who are using machine learning algorithms, I think the key is to teach the algorithm how to recognize the right patterns, how to understand customers, right? You need to train and spend a lot of time training your algorithm to make it right.
Right, right. And now with so much competition in the e-commerce industry, Jonathan, customer acquisition costs are obviously high. And set in this backdrop, the current market scenario with marketing budgets being slashed to almost 40% in this region, and we're doing a whole state of Martech report driven by Martech Web, which will be released soon. We saw that almost 65% of the respondents in this report are adopting a more retention as a new acquisition stance. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my first thought is first of all, when everybody stops advertising, I see an opportunity to be visible, right? And
Yeah,
it's not nothing new, right? We didn't wait digital advertising to know that. So in time of crisis, many years ago, when there was no e-commerce or no digital, the only people standing out were obviously people investing at the time of crisis. So that would be my first advice. Second thing is retention is a new acquisition. I don't really believe that this is really new. I think that any successful e-commerce knows about the importance of retention, right? So I just talk in my in my case for multi-brand e-commerces, right?
right,
Brand loyalty usually very poor. So when customers find out a better price, okay, somewhere else, they usually jump ship and go buy somewhere else because you don't really have any particular emotional attachment to the brand. You are selling just a product that many other companies are selling. So how do capitalize on retention, or how do you activate retention? I think you need to go back to ecom basics, right? Which are, the user experience, how easy it is to return a product and get refunded. Because if that process is right, obviously you are going to build trust and people will come back to you and shop with you, right?
right.
Instead of just trying to save a couple of dollars somewhere else and taking the chance to not getting served properly. And I believe that there is also an additional very important point is how you deal with issues, right? So if issues, problems are unavoidable wherever you are and whoever you are. Okay? Even if you're Amazon, you will have issues with your customers, but your ability to treat those issues is key. When a customer has a problem, satisfaction should be a priority, regardless of what the problem is, right? So
Right.
if a customer is having an issue, if you manage to quickly turn around things in a positive way for the customer, you are going to build trust massively, right? And that person again will come back and shop with you.
Right, right. And now there's so much emphasis and talk about delivering exceptional customer experiences. It brings me to my final question. What are the things that an e-commerce marketer needs to relentlessly focus on, to deliver the so-called exceptional e-commerce or exceptional e-shopping experience?
Well, I would say that everything revolves around customer obsession, right? So companies which are obsessed about their customer are usually the winning ones.
Right,
But how do you start that obsession, right? So if you want to be customer centric and customer focused, the first thing is you, as an employee of your company, should know your why. Okay, so you should know the why of the company, the famous why that Simon Sinek talk a lot about, right? Which is why, how, and what, right? And the company is working from the inside of the golden circle out, right? Are usually the most successful one. If your own employees and coworkers don't understand why you are doing what you do, you can be sure that your customers have absolutely no idea why you are doing what you do. So once you know why you are doing what you do, let the customer know, right? They should know what you're standing for, and why you are doing this. Only when they know you and you know them using data, obviously, right? This is how you start, making any decision around your why. And the second thing I would say, never compromise on the user experience. When you add, when you implement a new piece of tech or you want to develop a service, I think the key thing is less is more. Do less, but do better, right? So make sure also when you implement a new piece of tech, which is the trap, right? Everyone is always, seduced by a new service or a new piece of technology. You want to jump on that new technology, you purchase it, but you have no one to use it, right? Usually a new tool requires time and effort. Nothing is working by itself, right? So the key again is less is more. Have less tools, choose better, and make sure you have the right people using those tools.
Right. Less is more. Less is more is the new mantra. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, Jonathan. Any closing notes for e-commerce marketers you were watching the interview right now?
Yeah, I think um, now is really the time to really make the right data-driven decisions. Again, focus on your core skills, capitalize on that, have a plan for the worst, especially with the pandemic. Okay, think about your last mile partners, think about your capacity in case you're going in a new lockdown and orders are pouring and pouring. Don't disappoint your customers. Really plan for the worst, plan for 6 time capacity, and you'll be fine.
Right. On that note, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us today, Jonathan.
Thank you very much.